There are a lot of elements that one needs to keep in mind when trying to make a good story. Interesting lore, likable characters, aesthetically pleasing design. And one of the most important things is motivation. Why are the characters going on this adventure? What are they working towards? What do they want out of this journey? And this is one of the biggest problems with RWBY. No one has any long-term motivations. No overarching goal was fine back in volumes 1 through 3 because the show was episodic. One episode has the girls trying to take down a crime syndicate, the next has them organizing a school dance. That works for the day-by-day pacing of the volumes. But now that the show has a continuous plot, the lack of motivation is a huge detriment to the story. Why did RWBY go to Mistral? Because Crow mentioned it. If Crow hadn't have suggested getting answers at Haven, it seems RWBY would have just stayed at Patch with Yang. And what about Ranger? Why'd they accompany her? Because she asked them to. No one made this decision on their own. They were all presented with the idea and agreed to go along with it. And then once they made it, they have no goal. They went there to learn about Cinder and how she managed to infiltrate the tournament, but don't do anything towards achieving that. They just do what Crow and Ozpin tell them to do. Even once Yang and Weiss joined them, they all just sit around waiting for the plot to progress rather than work towards something. Speaking of Yang and Weiss, let's take a moment to go over their motivations for volumes 4 and 5. Weiss was content to sit around the house and be mopey until Jacques took away her privileges. She only starts training once she has no more political power. But why? Why now decide to run away? Jacques hit her, and that's not cool, but nothing seems to prompt her decision to leave, aside from she cried for a second. This is a story we've seen time and time again in media, and Miles and Carrie have followed its beats to a T, but missed the part where they gave Weiss a reason for any of her actions. Why was she content to stay at home? Why didn't she try fighting back before? Why was this event enough to prompt her to do something about it? The only question with an answer is, why does she choose to leave, rather than confront her dad? And the reason for that is because they need to get the team back together. But hey, at least Weiss has a goal for Volume 4, one that she can't do on her own at all, but that's beside the point. In Volume 5, Weiss simply implies activity without any results. Small Armor Guy is negligible towards freeing her from the cage. We don't even get to see the progress he's made. It seems Weiss just chooses not to try too hard so that Yang can meet up with her, wherein she then just piggybacks off of Yang's goal of get to RWBY and then does nothing for the rest of the volume with the others. And yeah, the only goal Yang has for Volume 4 and 5 is get to RWBY, and after doing that, she has no new objectives. The problem is that the girls only have short-term goals, like meet up with a person or go to a place. They have no stakes in any of the villains aside from fight them because they're bad guys. The only one with an overarching goal is Blake. Take out the White Fang. But even then, Blake does nothing to get her closer to achieving that goal. She spends Volume 4 not wanting to do anything, and then just waits for the gang to attack her house in Volume 5. Getting signatures did nothing to further her aspirations, and she tried nothing else outside of that. And then once she finally gets the chance to take the White Fang back at Haven, Blake leaves that up to Sun, Ilya, and her parents for no reason. Blake instead runs off to reconnect with her team that she didn't even know was going to be there. They give a character a long-running motivation and have them totally ignore it once it comes time to enact upon it. And unfortunately, all that also came at the cost of totally isolating her from the main plot. Blake is completely unaware of the central story for 2 whole volumes, and is then just assimilated into the plot with the others because her name helps make up the show's title acronym. How does Blake feel about Salem and the other bad guys? It doesn't matter. She's just expected to go on the Relic Collection quest because she's part of the title team. And all of this comes to a head in Volume 6, where this problem becomes most apparent. Why are the girls going to Atlas? They mentioned that Atlas is the safest place they can take the relic to. But why? Why not stick it back in the vault? Shouldn't Oz be able to do that? Why not hide it at Beacon, seeing as Cinder and the Grimm haven't been able to find that relic yet? So what made them decide to go to Atlas? Ozpin told them to. The main cast are only going on this adventure because they were told to. They don't care about Salem, or Cinder, or any of the Council of Villains. They only fight the baddies because they keep getting attacked by them. The heroes aren't going on this journey because they want to, it's because they have to. Ozpin's always there to give them instructions now, and that's not a good thing. The kids aren't doing any of this to further their goals, but because they're just following orders. And that doesn't stop with the kids. Crow's just doing what he's told too. Oz has control over the entire group's adventure, but here's the problem. He doesn't have any motivations either. Ozma's only doing all this shit because the God of Light told him to. Oz just wanted to hang out in the afterlife and wait for his girlfriend to show up. He was tasked with collect the relics so the gods can judge you without his input. He only agrees because his waifu's immortal and can't meet up with him in death. Oz clearly doesn't want to do this mission. He immediately ignores the relics to instead go start a family with Salem, and that only stops because she decides things aren't working out between them. He then spends multiple lifetimes doing nothing but drink and have kids. They've given Oz no reason to want to collect the relics. Either humanity will be considered cool enough that the gods and magic will return, or he'll fail and get everyone killed again. This world has semblances and maidens. There's no need to bring magic back, and by all accounts having the gods available to talk to just leads to problems. And so they kinda just switched the goal to destroy Salem, but that's not an option. So now what? I don't know what anybody wants to do about all of this. The smart idea seems to be to keep the relics separated, but it seems like the heroes have decided to collect them now. Why? Why are any of the characters doing any of the things they set out to do? They don't know what to do about Salem. Hell, they don't even seem to have a plan to get to her. In fact, they don't seem to have any plans at all. Why do they want to get the relic to Atlas? I don't fucking know, and I don't think they know either. Everyone's just following orders without getting to do something because they want to. The only characters in the show who are actually working towards something are the bad guys. Cinder wants power. Raven wants to be safe. Salem wants revenge. Hazel also wants revenge. Okay, a lot of them actually want revenge, but at least they want something. Each volume has the protagonists sitting around doing nothing while the villains are out driving the plot forward. Ilya attacked Blake while the Albane brothers stormed the mansion. Cinder and friends laid the trap at the school. Adam climbed the corporate ladder, participated in the attack at the school, and ambushed Blake. The bad guys are constantly trying to achieve something and are clearly working behind the scenes as well to reach their goals. This is a show where the only people who want something and are trying to get it done are the villains, while the heroes just wait for the plot to attack them each volume. Well, except for Jean. Jean wants to avenge Pyrrha. He's the only member of the main cast with a desire outside of go over there, and is the only hero with a personal reason to want to fight any of the villains they've gotten to encounter. But of course Jean's got an overarching plot. He's got a ton of screen time. While Team RWBY has to split their time in the spotlight between them, the writers always make sure to take a moment to put Jean center stage. Jean gets to do something every volume, while RWBY tends to just get attacked by bad guys a lot as she walks to the next destination. With all the time they dedicate to Jean and Pyrrha, it's no wonder they've managed to write in some sort of motivation for the guy. But Team RWBY don't have that. The girls struggle to get to play a role in the main plot so often that Yang didn't get any substantial screen time until volume 5, and Blake keeps getting dissected from the group to deal with her subplot. They couldn't even have RWBY work towards her Silver Eye moment with a Leviathan. RWBY's ignored her Silver Eyes since Crow mentioned them, and when she finally does get to learn more about them, it's Maria who initiates it. They don't even have RWBY ask about them first. She needs someone to tell her to sit down and learn. Allowing the protagonist screen time that wasn't just setting the stage of how do we get to the next place could help with hinting at some motivations for the heroes. However, I fear that won't do much because Team RWBY's lack of substantial motivation is a problem that goes all the way to the core of their characters. In Volume 2, the team sits down and tells Oobleck and each other why they all want to be a huntress. Yang is just here because she wants excitement in her life. She wants to travel and go on adventures. Blake wants to achieve equality for the Faunus, and being a huntress is seen as noble. Weiss wants to prove the Schnees aren't all garbage like her dad, and while she wasn't involved in that conversation, Ruby's explained to Oz that she wants to be a huntress so she can be a hero like in the book she reads. The girls all picked this job because it was convenient. Being a huntress lets you explore the world. It gives you clout to push your political agendas. It gets you respect quicker than a desk job would. It's more romantic than being a cop. The core, fundamental reason for all the girls to even be in the show, going to school and fighting monsters, is because this was the easiest career option. And for 3 of the girls, their core goal is a passive experience. I just want to go on adventures means Yang just has to move forward to be achieving what she wants. I want to fix the family name just means doing nice things for people. I want to be a hero just means killing Grimm when they attack villages. RWBY, Weiss, and Yang's goals don't require any input from them and are never met with resistance. As long as they follow orders, they are succeeding in fulfilling their objectives. Blake's the only one that has to actively do something. Fix the White Fang. And she did it. Volume 5's finale has them take down the terrorist group and sees Gira take over again, and Volume 6 has the girls kill the last remaining threat from the gang. Blake is done with her quest. I mean, like, yeah, there's still racism and Remnant, but her primary antagonist is gone now. So like the rest of her team, as long as Blake follows orders and is a generally nice person, she's getting what she wants. The girls lack any goals that put them in an active role in the plot and don't have any stakes when it comes to confronting the villains. There doesn't need to be a personal vendetta against all the bad guys, but they should have some sort of relationship with them. Torchwick was a good example of this. He and RWBY recognized each other. They wanted to win when they fought each other because of their previous interactions. And his involvement with the White Fang made him someone for Blake to confront as well, working with the gang she's trying to defeat. RWBY cared about defeating Torchwick not only because he's a bad guy, but because him being recurring made it personal.
That's the villain we keep running into. I hope we beat him this time.
That's missing with the rest of the villains. Tyrion attacked the kids once and is never brought up again. Hazel, referred to as that big guy during his one fight with the group and never brought up again. Watts hasn't even encountered any of the heroes after being in the show for 3 years. Salem, aside from being Ozma's ex, no one seems to have an opinion about her. Raven, Yang stopped caring about her when she finally got to confront her, no one else has an opinion on her. Neo, just considered Roman's lackey. Emerald, no one seems to care that she pretended to be their friend. Mercury, exists. The heroes care more about one-off villains like Cordo and Cardin than the main antagonists. The only one of the central villains the kids have a strong opinion about is Cinder, and even then half the time they refuse to acknowledge those opinions. Jean wants to defeat her and get revenge for Pyrrha, and RWBY knows about her. Even though RWBY saw Pyrrha's death firsthand and had assumed Tyrion was working for her, we don't see RWBY strive to take Cinder on like how Jean does. RWBY only really seems to care about her when she's about to kill one of her teammates. Otherwise, she'd rather spend her time sparring with Emerald and Mercury. Meanwhile, the villains are constantly talking about the silver-eyed girl, even though she's only interacted with a fraction of them. This is a one-sided dynamic where the bad guys are thinking about the good guys and have opinions about them and have goals in relation to defeating them, while the heroes just fight whoever shows up. The kids treat the main villains the same way they treat faceless goons. Just an enemy to beat, without any consideration beyond that. And all of this has resulted in a show where the only ones who ever choose to try to get something done are the bad guys. Volume 4. Weiss, Blake, and Yang sit around a house, and Ranger just walks forward fighting the random encounters that try to impede their progress. Volume 5. Ranger, Yang, and Weiss sit around a house, and the only reason Blake doesn't do that is because her house gets attacked. Volume 6. The kids' goal is to sit around a house, and the only reason it takes them so long to do that is because their train crashed on the way there. None of the heroes have an opinion on the events of the main plot and no agency in pushing it forward. Just keep walking until a Grimm attacks. Just hang out until the villains find you. Only go on an adventure because you were forced into that situation. The girls need to be given a reason to go on this journey that isn't just following orders. Something has to drive them forward. They have to have goals to work towards. They need motivation. The protagonists are more than just pretty designs you put on merch. They are the heroes we follow and want to see win. But as it is, the girls are just walking concept art and tropey one-liners. With no motivation to facilitate them, the characterization of the kids suffers. This is a show where there are magic items to find, powerful maidens to defend, armies of monsters to fight, a council of villains to defeat, and a main antagonist that wields the powers of the gods at her fingertips that can't be destroyed. And the main 4 characters have no given reason to care about any of that. In a show with so much potential, Team RWBY are passengers in their own story.